This is WCN, the Whole Care Network. You talk, we listen. Content presented on the following podcast is for information purposes only. Views and opinions expressed during this podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent views of the Whole Care Network. Always consult your physician for medical and fitness advice, and always consult your attorney for legal advice. And thank you for listening to the Whole Care Network.
Have you ever met anybody that has caregiving on their bucket list of things to do in life?
Beyond caregiving, how do we care?
We also have to care for ourselves.
How do we treat friends, family, strangers we meet?
Forget it.
How do we heal? The physical, social, financial, spiritual.
Hello.
By creating healing ties. Tying it all together like a bow tie. With your host, Christopher McClellan, the bow tie guy.
Well, greetings, everyone. It is Christopher McClellan, the bow tie guy, for another episode of Healing Ties featured on the Whole Care Network. As you know, on the Whole Care Network, we are all about story sharing and resources because we believe it's through story sharing where diversity meets the road to collaborate on a common cause. And our common cause is supporting caregivers before, during, and after caregiving ends. And as you know, we are celebrating National Family Caregivers Month with the reboot of the popular Healing Ties podcast. Well, I think it's popular, and I think my guest does too, but other people have said the same thing with our 30 podcasts in 30 days to celebrate National Family Caregivers Month. And just as important, the soft launch of our new Whole Care Network website. So when you get a chance, please visit our new website. Well, you got to go to the old site first to get to the new site during November, but you'll see the link right away to the new site. And when you get to the new site, you'll get an opportunity to meet a fellow by the name of Bo, because Bo ties things together on the Whole Care Network. As soon as you see Bo, you're going to get it 100%. And during our soft launch, we're asking all of our listeners to provide us with some feedback on the new site so we can continue to build the site in a way that it's easy for you to find your favorite podcasts, favorite blogs, and videos. Oh, and by the way, you'll be able to search content on the Whole Care Network via our 4 pillars of care: our physical, social, financial, and spiritual care. And content will be distributed either in one or all 4 of those categories. So we're hoping that's going to make it a little bit easier for you. And be on the lookout for our new YouTube channel featuring live shows, our streaming 24/7 radio station, and a few other things that are coming to the Whole Care Network in 2021. Well, enough from me. Goodness. My guest today is family caregiver turned advocate, author, and certified caregiving consultant, Elizabeth Miller. Elizabeth's personal experience caring for aging parents with chronic and terminal illnesses, as well as caring for a sibling with developmental disabilities, inspired her to create Happy Healthy Caregiver in 2015. Through her consulting services, very popular podcast, book, and online community, Elizabeth helps family caregivers integrate caregiving and self-care with their busy lives. And Elizabeth, it is great to visit with you today on Healing Ties. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Chris, and welcome to back to the reboot of Healing Ties. And I just admire this 30 and 30 that you're doing. It's quite a feat.
It's quite a feat. It's been a lot of fun. I've reconnected with a lot of folks And it's fun being back in the podcasting saddle. So and you've been a big part of why I'm getting back into this, because your support and your care is, you're just one of the special people that I've ever met in this caregiving journey. So
thank you. Well, likewise. I mean, you prompted me to get started in podcasting, frankly. So it was your words of encouragement that just kind of pushed me to say, you can do this. So I really appreciate that. And there's been no looking back, right? There's over 100 episodes of Happy Healthy Caregiver, which is also on the Whole Care Network.
Which is also on the Whole Care Network. And you can find the Happy Healthy Caregiver on the Whole Care Network, on your Happy Healthy Caregiver website, and all popular podcast platforms. But enough of that.
Yes,
we want to know more about more about you. And while I know a lot about you, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about you and Happy Healthy Caregiver and why you're doing what you're doing?
Basically, what I'm doing is trying to create something that I wish existed for me 6 years ago. I was isolated, overwhelmed, losing my mind. My husband and I were juggling raising our active kids at the time, working our full-time jobs in the height of our careers. And we have these aging parents that really needed us. His mom had lung cancer. My parents have had chronic health issues. We have now lost all three of them in the past 6 years. My mom recently, this past September. So I like to say she took the scenic route to heaven. So my dad was their personalities just matched how the end happened for them here on our planet. But it's been a roller coaster, frankly. So I looked for things that I wish existed for family caregivers. I didn't even know I was called a family caregiver 6 years ago. I just thought it was a woman losing her mind. And I identified with sandwich generation, being squeezed between aging parents and children and caring for everybody, and knowing that in caring for these three people that I am going to burn myself out if I don't change the trajectory of things, because all of them were in the situation, frankly, that they were in, my mother-in-law, my parents, because of lifestyle choices. And so it became very clear and apparent to me that I needed to flip everything upside down, pay my health and happiness first,
right,
and see what kind of dividends that would reap for everybody.
Isn't it amazing as we get the privilege to work with caregivers not only across the country, across the globe, that the issues are so similar about self-care, about isolation. And that's why I just love the name of your brand, Happy Healthy Caregiver.
Thank you.
Because it while caregiving is hard, where there's no doubt about that, there's no greater honor than to care for somebody else. And we want to be happy as much as we can. And you're making that happen.
Thank you. Thank you. It was intentional to, I tried on the venting part and it didn't quite work for me. So just having this, people sometimes call me the happy, healthy caregiver. And I'm like, oh, no, this is a work in progress here.
Right.
That is the beacon of the goal for all of us, is to figure this out and to make it easier for somebody else is ultimately what I would love to happen.
And you just mentioned a word that rang in my head about intentional self-care for caregivers. It is so important. That's one of the most important skills for a caregiver to learn, especially early on, is the intention of taking care of yourself first.
Mm-hmm. I know there's some eye rolling happening, probably people listening like they're, we're not here to shit all over you.
Right.
But I'm just speaking from experience here.
Exactly.
That, in trying on different things and self-care for caregivers, it doesn't have to necessarily be bubble baths and girls' night outs and weekends away. It can be, but it's really about learning how to say no, setting boundaries, asking for help, finding little power pellets in your day that can energize you to kind of keep going, and figuring out what that looks like. And so over the past 6 years, I've tried on different things that people have said may work, and love to write and talk about them and share them and connect people to other things. We're all different. We're all different humans.
We're all different humans, but when we share our story, we all learn a little bit about each other, and we're able to take some timely tips from our stories that not only validate, but really provide us with some rest and relaxation because we realize we're not the only ones doing this.
No, and we're modeling, like in my case, I'm modeling it for my kids,
Oh, very good.
And so I don't want to show them this version of myself that could be exhausted and depleted. I need to model for them how to figure this out. These are part of the tools to give them as adults.
I want to shift gears just a little bit because, as you mentioned earlier, you just recently lost your mom.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to certainly appreciate you sharing the information as you do so well on social media conversations that we've had. But grief during COVID, it's certainly different.
It sucks, frankly. So it's been a grief overload year, frankly. In fact, my next podcast on the Whole Care Network is going to cover that topic. So grief comes in different ways. Losing somebody is definitely a grief, but I've had a grief in my job. I was furloughed for a few months, my day job. Mm-hmm. I've had a grief in my kids, leaving the nest. I'm an empty nester with both of them in college. We're all grieving, frankly, our whole world, the things that we haven't been able to do. We've had a lot of milestones in my family. My husband turned 50. My daughter turned 21. My son graduated high school. So we've had to figure things out. And I think the theme of this year, though, has been grief. But out of the grief, I like to kind of find the good in things, right? And so resilience. This is where I'm landing.
That is a beautiful word, resilience. How do we get to resilience, though, during all this grief? Everybody knows my story. I struggled with my grief. And it wasn't until, I'd say about a year and a half ago where I just kind of stepped outside of it and maybe stepped into my comfort zone, because I think the important message is it really happens in your own time.
There is no timeline.
You can't force it. Mm-hmm.
No, and sometimes I think what helps me when losing a physical person is, what would that person want for me? What kind of life do they want me to live and mm-hmm. take from this? And so certainly, none of them want me to just wallow in it. They would want me to celebrate their life, talk about them often, pass on the family traditions and the memories, and keep their spirit alive.
And that is such an important message to carry on. Keep the spirit alive. Goodness. Mm-hmm. So now I'm going to shift gears again because I want to talk to you about your book.
Ooh, yeah. I love that topic.
Yeah.
The book I wrote just had its 2-year anniversary. Mm-hmm. That's called Just for You, a daily self-care journal. It was definitely written with family caregivers in mind, although it is a tool for anyone that needs and wants to be more intentional with their self-care. Would make a great gift as well. But I wanted people to be intentional with self-care and find a very doable way to do that. And so one of the things that has helped me is journaling, mm-hmm. just kind of getting in touch with the emotional side does not come as naturally for me. I have to kind of work at that.
Right.
So having a little prompt on a journal, a daily prompt, gets me in that mindset and thinking. And there's some fun pages, between the months. But I love the idea that everybody's thinking about the same prompt on the same day. And if I'm being honest, I don't do it every day because that's real life. So
that's real life is
that's real life. And so I enjoy, since I've been in 2 years of this, like going back and looking at what I wrote. Maybe mm-hmm. I've enhanced it a little bit. Maybe I add to the blank page that I find. And I think it's going to be a really cool legacy and a history to leave behind for my family.
I know when Richard first got sick and I'm looking for an outlet, I had never blogged before. And that's when I started the Purple Jacket blog in 2011. And I go back and I look at what I wrote in 2011, 2012. And then as the disease continued mm-hmm. on, there's some comfort there that you can go back and look at and experience with your care partner. For me, it was my loved one. And having I think journaling, blogging, whatever you feel comfortable is one of those areas that I would suggest caregivers as they feel comfortable to do it. And even if you don't share it with anybody else, you've got that timeless memory that's right there.
Yeah. Try it on is what I say. Try it on. See if it fits. See if it fits like your purple jacket there, Chris.
I wish it did fit right now, but that's for another conversation.
Yeah, but it may work for you and it may not, but it's you won't know unless you try.
Won't know unless you try, and it's just another outlet that I guess we can coin it. It's an outlet for self-care.
Definitely, it's because everything in there gets you in touch with, your dreams, your childhood memories that are happy, what a perfect day would look like, what's something good that happened to you recently. I think sometimes we just don't reflect back on like what's going well, it's just constantly what's not going well. And it's like, hey, let's pat ourselves on the back a little bit, or let's put some dreams out there that we can start working for and have fun with it.
Dreams and goals. And I think, and I'm pretty sure you will agree with this. And when you think of life after caregiving, when you look back, while you're in the middle of it, you think about all those difficult days. But then, at least for me, when I look back, there was a lot. The days there's more better days than bad days. It's just those bad days when you're in the middle of it just really stuck out. But I have nothing but terrific memories, and it's because I can go back and read the blog and reminisce, and we all need to do that.
I think that what I have learned by sharing words on paper is that the more transparent I am, frankly, and that's something I had to get comfortable with. And now it's like, what do you want to know? So, but the more transparent I am, the more clearly I see myself. And it's been a great learning process for me. I've learned a lot about myself in 6 years and what's important to me and the values, and all of that is priceless, frankly.
And think of how many people you're helping through your writing and your podcast.
I hope so.
I know so. I see the comments. Thank you. So Elizabeth, this is probably a great time to take our break. And, I have to forewarn you, as I'm doing with all of our guests here in our reboot in 30 and 30, after the break, I'm going to come back and ask you for a fun fact about you that I may not know, and I certainly know our listeners are going to want to know about you. So get your thinking cap on.
I'll be ready. Okay.
Well, you're listening to Healing Ties on the Whole Care Network. We will be right back.
Tomorrow on Healing Ties 2.0.
We have a great program I'm so proud of that we're basically doing free respite care, and it's so needed. My God, imagine when we were caregiving and somebody goes, hey, Chris, you want a break for an afternoon? You want to get away, man?
Want to get away?
Hi, this is Gary Joseph LeBlanc from the Dementia Spotlight Foundation. Make sure you don't miss the show with Chris McCullough. We're going to have a great show tomorrow. Please be there. You're going to enjoy the whole thing. It's going to be awesome.
Join us tomorrow and every day in November for 30 shows in 30 days. Healing Ties 2.0. Available at thewholecarenetwork.com/Healing Ties and wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.
Well, welcome back, everybody. I'm continuing my delightful conversation with the Happy Healthy Caregiver, Elizabeth Miller. So, Elizabeth, I forewarn you, it's time. You have to be revealing. Got to step into your comfort zone here. What's that fun fact? What's that fun fact we all want to know?
I like it because you give me a taste of my own medicine. I always put people through the lightning round on my podcast.
Yes, you do.
And sometimes I get tongue-tied. My fun fact that people may not know, and that I don't think you know, Chris, is that after college, I went to Penn State University. After college, I went backpacking with two of my girlfriends to Europe. We went to 13 countries in 9 weeks. I had a total budget of $3,000. That was like graduation money. My grandma, I think my family member got my Eurail pass, and my grandma bought my plane ticket. But my spending money and everything for hostels and all of that and gifts was $3,000. And I had a little Casio watch that had a calculator on it. That was one of my roles, as I was the money converter, because there was no no European currency, common currency then. And it opened up my world, and I definitely got bit by the travel bug hard and have dreams. We've had amazing vacations with my kids that I've gotten to go back to some of these places. And I have a lot of places still I want to go.
Well, I did not know that about you. And maybe as we are able to, once we get back to traveling, we could set up a trip with Happy Healthy Caregivers through the Whole Care Network.
I would love that. I would love that.
Would that be fun?
You think about how hard it was then. It's like we didn't have phones. I had the Let's Go Europe guide, and we look at a map, and we used to kind of say to each other, what's the one thing you wanted to do in each city? Like my girlfriends took a lot of pictures, but probably couldn't see them instantly, right? You had to wait till they got developed. And then we would call home on Sundays. Like, I don't even believe my parents let me do this, frankly. We would call home, and they would do a 3-way call between the families on Sundays. And I just am thankful that my parents let me do that.
And you probably called collect.
Yes, we called collect.
And there might be people listening on this podcast that don't know what the heck calling collect
I know. I'm really aging myself, but
I didn't say that.
Yeah, I'm going to own it. I mean, it's okay.
I enjoy that fun fact, because traveling, especially here in the last year and a half, has really changed my life, and I'm a little bit more goal oriented, and I want to live in Europe the rest of my life, and do podcasts from Europe, and
I think it's a great way to do that. And I don't know if I want to live in Europe the rest of my life, but my husband and I have fantasies of renting a place, staying there a month, seeing the heck out of everything around it, and then planning to go to a new place and do it and just rinse and repeat. And that sounds amazing to me. So
I think that's something that I might want to tag along with you.
Here you go. Yes. You got to love food.
Oh, well, that's part of the problem, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. Well, Elizabeth, with the stories you share and the work that you do, you are certainly someone who's creating healing ties all around us. I can't thank you enough for joining me today.
Thank you, Chris. You've enriched my life. I'm glad to know you, and thank you for what you do.
But before I let you go, let our listeners know how they can be in contact with you and find Happy Healthy Caregiver and your podcasts and all your work.
Best thing to do is just go to happyhealthycaregiver.com, and that will lead you down any path that you want: the podcast, the blog, email list, social media, book, whatnot.
And your podcast is available on all popular podcast platforms too. So, and more to come.
Yes.
More to come.
Yes.
Well, what a great conversation today with Elizabeth Miller. And I just hate when we have to close these podcasts, because I can talk forever with my wonderful guests like Elizabeth, but
you got to preserve your energy.
You got to preserve the energy. Yeah. These are 30 podcasts in 30 days.
Yes. We're not messing around.
Well, that does it for this episode of Healing Ties. As you know, I'm Christopher McClellan. You might know me as the Bowtie Guy, and I've created a life to love after caregiving ends by sharing stories, resources, and being with awesome people like Elizabeth Miller. Healing Ties is produced in the posh studios of Odd Box Production in downtown St. Louis, Missouri, and is part of the Whole Care Network. Check out our soft launch of our new Whole Care Network website, and be sure to meet Bo. And please subscribe to Healing Ties wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. We'll see you for another episode of Healing Ties, tomorrow, as we continue our 30 podcasts in 30 days to celebrate National Family Caregivers Month. Thanks for listening. Take care. Bye for now.
Ciao.
This is WCN, the Whole Care Network. You talk, we listen.